Welcome to Postscript. I'm Beth Cappello.
And I'm Christina Zeiders. Today we're talking All Creatures, Great and Small, Season 2, Episode 6, Home Truths.
And we have a very special guest with us today. Welcome, Vern Gauthier.
Hi, good to be here.
If you'd like to be a guest on Postscript when we cover Season 3, send us a short video or audio recording telling us why you love All Creatures, Great and Small.
You can send your thoughts and recordings to ps@witf.org.
Awesome. So, Vern, thank you for coming today. We really appreciate it. You're a fan of the books, a fan of the shows, and a moderator of a Facebook group. So can you tell us more about your love for All Creatures, Great and Small, how you became a fan, how the group started?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. I first was exposed to the show, TV show, I guess late 70s, early 80s. I'm not exactly sure when it was, but I did watch the episodes and immediately fell in love with that. It wasn't until later that I went back and read the books. And then when this new series started, I just really fell in love with it again and started to watch the new series and became a really big fan of the new series, and then went back and started to reread the books again. So, I mean, that's been my...
It's a cycle.
Yeah. It's sort of something I have forgotten about for a few years and then came back and was like rediscovering something that you loved once and you come back to it and it's like, oh, yeah, this is great. I forgot how good this was.
Yeah.
The current series I really enjoy. What I really like about it is that they have... while they use the books as a reference, they will take some things directly from the books. They'll have other scenes where they take part of it, or they combine 2 or 3 scenes from different parts in the books, and then they'll just do something where they'll take one line from the book and create something totally new from it. So even though I have seen the series before and have read the books, it keeps it interesting because you're not quite sure where they're going to go, at any one time. So I really like that. Another thing I really appreciate about this series is built around the women characters, especially Helen and Mrs. Hall. Mrs. Hall in the books really doesn't have much of anything. And even Helen is somewhat limited. But in this current series, they really give them their own backstory, their own story. And it's just not dependent on the men in the series. They have their own part to play in this as well. So, and how they develop all the characters and give them their own backstory. So I think that's really good. So
I honestly can't imagine this story without Mrs. Hall.
I can't either.
It just doesn't feel, it would feel incomplete to me.
She's so central to the story now.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, she is Skeldale House, right?
She is Skeldale House. It's very true.
The house, yes.
Yeah.
So you have a Facebook group. Can you share that with our listeners?
I do not have a Facebook group.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I am a member of the All Creatures Great and Small Fans Worldwide Facebook group. I've only been a member there 6, 7, 8 months. I've been a moderator of that group for about the last 4 months, I believe.
Okay.
And we have fans from all over the world. We just passed 7,000 members.
Woohoo!
Yes.
That's a big number. That's a lot of people.
Big group.
Though there are other Facebook groups out there for All Creatures Great and Small that are maybe 3 times bigger than us. But we like to think we are smaller, but we have more discerning.
Yeah.
And you've built a community.
We
You've built a real community.
We do. So, and it's if anyone is out there who's really into All Creatures Great and Small and you can't get enough of talking about it and dissecting it and wondering about what's going to happen to this character and that character and talking about how the relationships are building, you should really come to All Creatures Great and Small Fans Worldwide and join us. Because we do all that kind of stuff all the time.
It sounds like there's even some sneak peeks for the American viewers
there
from
are
time to time.
Sneak peek spoilers, yes.
Yeah. So warning,
be careful. But
anything that says spoiler, and you don't want to be spoiled. But yeah, it sounds like a great group.
Yeah, so it's really for people who are really into it, yeah.
Yeah.
We watched this episode together before we recorded. Was there anything that you noticed? I mean, you noticed a lot, but is there anything that really stood out to you?
Well, I just really enjoy the scene that James finally proposes very awkwardly to Helen.
Very awkwardly.
The scene in the car.
The scene in the car.
I was like, which one? There's
right,
two.
There's technically two proposals here.
Well,
The awkward one, the romantic one.
it's one of my favorite scenes is the whole car scene, then going up onto the hill, because that scene is just so creative. It's basically taken from one line in the book, and they create this whole scene around it. I can read that for you if you would like me to.
Sure.
Oh, yes,
Yes,
please
go for
do.
So in the book, this is just after Siegfried has spoken to James about it's time for him to get married. And so then James says this, I don't suppose I am the first person to have had his life fundamentally influenced by one of Siegfried's chance outbursts. I thought his opinions ridiculous at the time, but he planted a seed which germinated and flowered almost overnight. There is no doubt he is responsible for the fact that I was the father of a grown-up family while I was still a young man, because when I brought the subject up with Helen, she said yes, she'd like to marry me, and we set our eyes on an early date. She seemed surprised at first. Maybe she had the same opinion of me as Siegfried and expected it would take me a few years to get off the ground. So,
Which we all thought.
yes.
Right.
And so from that simple line of she was surprised at first, they build this whole scene of her in the car,
Right.
and when it twigs on her that James is actually does want to marry her, and she gives that look of just staring at him. And so this whole scene is built around that.
Yeah.
You know?
I like just she's surprised and then wow.
There's a moment of panic, it almost feels like, but she knows like it's what she wants. I think maybe that realization is like, she wants it too.
Well, I
He
mean,
wants
earlier
it
in the
and she
episode, James
wants
can't
it.
even say, you're my girlfriend, we're
Right.
dating. And then all of a sudden, he wants to marry her.
Right, when he's asking if she wants to have dinner with his parents, he's fumbling, isn't he, to try to even describe what the conversation is. And then a half an hour later, he's basically saying,
Marry
Will
me.
you marry me?
I want to marry you. Because Helen says, well, why don't you just say things? He says, it's because you might say no.
Yeah.
And that's when she understands he really does want to marry me.
And so she's like, oh my gosh.
But he's just afraid.
And
He's
then-
afraid to ask
Stop the
her.
car. I need to get out.
Stop the
I need
car.
some air.
And so that gets us back to the line that she seemed surprised at first. Yeah, she was surprised. 20 minutes earlier, he couldn't even say what their relationship was. And now she realizes he wants to marry her. So then they walk up to the field.
Yeah, exactly.
And then for me, what is some of the best writing in the series is when they have the conversation in the field. And James is afraid of Helen saying no. And what does she say? She says no. She never says yes there.
She says, you didn't talk to my father, did you?
Yeah.
But she, James says, I want to marry you. And she says, I'm not afraid either. And he says, you're not? And she says, no. So she never says yes. She says no.
Says no.
But her no is a yes.
Yes.
So what he thought he would hate to hear actually becomes something.
The best thing to hear.
Best thing to hear.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that is just such good writing, I think.
It is
It
great
really
writing.
is. So can you tell us something that you know or like about All Creatures Great and Small that you'd like our listeners to know?
Well, I really enjoy the character of Helen. And Helen ends up being James's wife. Now, in real life, Alf White, who is James Harriet, who wrote the books, his wife's name is Joan. And so in the book, it's Helen. But so a nod is given to Joan. Joan is the name of Mr. Alderson's wife who dies. And then Joan becomes the name of the foal that's born. So there's something there.
That's really nice. And Mr. Alderson refers to his wife Joan as 1 in 1,000. Like my wife is 1 in 1,000. She's amazing.
Right. So Mr. Alderson is speaking for Alf White as he writes that character to say something about his real life wife, Joan, I think.
I think so too.
Sweet.
It was really
sweet.
sweet.
Think about that connection.
That's really nice. And Joan also was one of the first women in her area to wear trousers, to wear pants, slacks, however you want to say it. And Helen in this story,
she wears a lot.
She wears the
pants.
She wears the pants in the family. and maybe not just literally she wears the pants in the family, but figuratively too. But yeah, so there's that. And then if you look at Mrs. Hall, her first name is Audrey.
Yes.
Right. In the book, Siegfried's wife name is Audrey. So,
oh my gosh.
So it's
I'm so hopeful.
I think Christina's freaking out over there.
I'm so hopeful.
Well, I know Christina was saying that she is a
knows.
fan of the idea of possibly eventually marrying the two off.
I've talked about it. I want them to be together. I'm conflicted now because I love Diana and I love Dorothy, and Mr. Hammond's in here too, and like
I'm game for Dorothy.
But I love a love triangle.
You know,
or like a square or pentagon, whatever it is.
I mean, in the Facebook group, this plays itself out. There are people who want Dorothy. There are people who want Audrey. There's people who want Diana.
Yeah. My gosh.
So everybody
that's awesome.
has their Siegfried love interest that they're rooting for to turn out, and we'll just have to wait and see. But
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us today, Vern.
It's great to be here. The time was way too short. I could talk about All Creatures Great and Small all day.
I think we could too.
I think we could too.
Yeah, you know so much about it.
Yes.
I really appreciate this opportunity to come and this is what we do in our Facebook group all the time, except we can't really talk to each other directly. So this was really great. I've enjoyed it.
This is really fun.
Awesome. Good. We love talking to you about this episode and learning more about your love of the series and your Facebook group. So if anybody's interested, any of our listeners, remember the Facebook group is called All Creatures Great and Small Fans Worldwide.
Yep.
And so we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll take a closer look at home truths.
Support for All Creatures Great and Small on Masterpiece is made possible locally by WITF members and by Pleasant View Communities, UPMC, Murray, and Argiers Murati Neurosurgical Associates of Lancaster.
All right, we're back and ready to break down this episode with you. Beth, are you ready?
Yes, I am, and I hope our listeners are too. You ready for this summary?
Yes, let's do it. The one-sentence summary.
The one-sentence summary. So overall, James proves to his parents that he belongs in Derby.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
He demonstrates it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Tristan finally understands the passion of being a vet.
I know. It was so sweet to see it all click into place for him.
It does. It does. I love Tristan. Shameless plug.
I honestly was annoyed by him in the first season, but he's growing on me. Like, I really do love Tristan.
Yeah, he's got a good heart. They're doing a really good job at developing his character.
Yeah, they are.
Mm-hmm. So let's start off by talking about Tristan and Mrs. Donovan and that whole storyline.
Right.
All right. So
because tragedy strikes immediately.
Exactly. I was like crying. So we open up and we see Mrs. Donovan trying to sell her dog and cat shampoos.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't know if you clocked it. She was holding one bottle and it was clear, and then the next bottle was greenish.
I did not notice
it was
that.
different color. So it's continuity error there. But that's okay.
She had a whole basket.
Yeah, exactly. She had a whole basket. Picking up whatever. But her dog, Rex, gets off the leash and he runs after a stray dog. And then he doesn't see the car coming.
Right.
And then he gets hit. And then I cried.
Right. Because he's just a baby.
Because he's just a baby.
And so.
And the whimpering. I can't do the whimpering.
It's real early, but do you want me to do my closer look now? Because my closer look is about dog safety.
Oh, yes. Let's do it. Start us off.
So 1, please leash your dogs. I just want to lead with that. Mm-hmm. Dogs are just babies. Mm-hmm. They don't understand.
And they're unpredictable. No matter how much you train them, they're unpredictable.
There's a squirrel. They're distracted. They want to chase it.
It can happen.
That's what dogs do. So I found this list of dog safety tips from VCA Animal Hospitals. And so it's extensive.
Oh, wow.
It goes beyond leashing. You are actually supposed to have your dog checked over before you do any sort of exercise program to find out how long they can walk.
What?
Well, because when our dog injured, Cece thinks she's an acrobat and she's not, and she injured her back leg.
Okay.
It was just sore, thankfully. And they told us like no long walks because her joints are achy. So yeah, you're actually supposed to, like, puppies, they're growing so fast that they might not be able to exercise as long, whereas older dogs might have joint issues. So you're actually supposed to get them checked over just like we are. Gosh. You're supposed to get a physical before you exercise.
Did not know that. That's crazy. Thank you.
Yeah. And of course, in addition to leashing your dog, please leash your dog. Make sure that they know basic commands like stop, sit, stay, come back. Like, that's important. My dogs don't normally listen, which is why we always leash our dogs.
We always leash our dogs.
So you want to make sure the leash is sturdy. And retractable leashes are actually not that safe for dogs. I learned this from a vet tech.
I have them.
Because we do too.
I have them.
Because it's harder to stop them if they take after something.
True.
Because there's so much space. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. And we usually pull them close when we see a car coming.
Same.
But if you can't see ahead or you're in an unpredictable place, having one that's not retractable, that's short, is actually much better.
That's what when we trained our Cookie. We were only allowed to train her with that leash. She couldn't bring a retractable with like a 6-foot leash.
Okay. Yeah. Ours are all 6-foot leashes too. And we have the retractable, but now that we have 3, we don't use them. When you're outside, if it's very hot or very cold, you got to make sure that their feet are protected, because if it's too hot, it can actually burn their little toe beans.
Oh.
So they do make boots. I can't imagine trying to get a boot on a dog.
Oh my gosh. I did get boots on my dogs. It's the funniest thing. They're like prancing around, and I don't have them anymore because if it's too cold, Cookie goes out, pees, and walks right back in. She doesn't do it. But Jake will like just lay out in the rain. And like sad boy scenes from a couple episodes ago. He just sits out there in the rain. He loves being outside. He does.
Cece loves being in the sun.
Oh yeah,
but
Cookie
she
will
overheats so quickly.
Yeah, Cookie will just lay there and bake in the sun. And I'm like, oh, you cooking?
And also, check their little toe beans after your walk.
Oh.
For cuts or scrapes or bruises. Just make sure they didn't step on any like errant glass pieces.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I won't read all of them, but those are basically the like walk ones. Like make sure that they're on a leash, that you check their toe beans. Also check them for fleas and ticks if you have the time. But getting a dog to stay still while you do that is impossible. But mostly, please leash your dogs.
Yes.
So that your dogs do not meet the same fate as Rex. Okay. That's my soapbox.
No, I love it. I love the closer look. I think I learned a lot. I'm sure our listeners did too. I learned a lot too. So thank you. So Tristan comes and he runs to the rescue of Rex, picks him up in his jacket and brings him back to Skeldale. And says, Siegfried, he was hit by a car, and Mrs. Donovan's running in after him like, no.
What are you doing to my dog?
Yeah,
she doesn't
like
trust vets.
She does not. I wonder what happened.
Yeah,
but she does not trust them. So they are in there. Siegfried checks him over, and he hemorrhages and unfortunately passes away and dies.
They don't even have a chance to chloroform him. It's very sad.
It is very sad. I was tearing up a lot. I was very sad.
And Mrs. Donovan, she doesn't believe it at first, and then you just see this realization wash over her face. She's a great actress. Whoever played Mrs. Donovan, she did it really, really well.
Yeah.
Because she's eccentric, but she clearly loves this dog.
Yeah. 100%. So Tristan talks to Mrs. Donovan about how he's going to he'll go with her, take Rex back, unless she wants to keep him there. She wants to take him home.
Right.
So he goes and offers to take him home, but Siegfried's like right behind the door listening in because Tristan he's a people person.
Right. He's interacting really well in this moment of grief.
Exactly.
And
he's handling it very well.
He reminds me a lot of my fiance Matt in that moment, sitting in the dark times without offering any solutions or anything, just being there.
Yeah.
And reminiscing, she kind of talks about her dog and he just listened. It was really sweet. You see a lot of Tristan, actually, the mature Tristan coming out.
He was as Siegfried, treating the people. He was treating the people.
Yeah, and he realizes that later, too.
Later on, when he's walking down, we see the stray dog outside, and he talks
that looks
to her
like a possum. The dog looks like a possum at one point.
The dog's cute and scruffy.
It is really.
And he mentions maybe you should get another, and she's like, no, because you can't just get another.
Right, they're not
family.
Just, what did she say? Trinkets. They're not trinkets
to
replace. Yeah,
exactly. And so go back to the boat, and he drops off the dog, and then later on in the episode, we see him get an idea. He puts a rope around his neck, and then he runs off from Scaledale House.
Right.
And he goes and gets the stray dog.
Right.
And tricks her into taking him.
But she's on to him, too.
She was.
She knows right away.
Yes, exactly. She's, oh, man, we're going to have to put down this stray, you know? And she's like, I'll just take him. And then later on.
leave him with me.
Yeah, later on we find out that, you know, she did know the whole time. And Siegfried looks really proud of him.
Right, because he kind of figured out this way to help the dog and help Mrs. Donovan with her grief.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was a really nice moment.
Yeah, it was really nice. I appreciated that. So thank you, Tristan.
Yes. So it's such a, like, he really grew a lot in this episode, and I'm glad that Siegfried's finally realizing that Tristan has a strength that he lacks.
Yes.
And so he's starting to see his role. I mean, you could see that he was starting to see his role in the practice at the cricket game, but now he's witnessing it, and
And he says he wants to go back and retake his exams.
Yeah,
for them.
just one exam. It's just one exam.
Sorry. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Shouldn't be too bad, but Siegfried, give me some money.
Yeah. You're going to need to give me more money.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go to James and Helen.
Right.
Oh my gosh, this whole episode. James and Helen, where to even start? We start
at the beginning.
Yeah, right. There we go. Start at Scaledale House. And James is talking to Siegfried, and Siegfried goes and says, why don't you just marry Helen? And
that's better already.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like his big role in the whole show, I think. We don't see much of him other than that.
Essentially, the only real action he takes is to set off this chain reaction.
Exactly. And so he talks to him about marrying her, going down the hallway. James is following him and talking to him. Tristan
like
and
trying
Mrs.
to talk him out of
there.
this like crazy idea.
Yeah, Tristan's listening in and mentioning his cute little side things.
Oh, yeah. What does he say at the one point? I wouldn't mind waking up to Helen. Sorry, that's inappropriate, but it's true.
I know. That's like totally something I would say, too, in that exact moment. 100%. So then James arrives at the Alderson farm, and Helen gives him a hug and notices a little smell.
But it's not a bad smell.
Not bad. She's like,
it's just not.
She's like, sniff, sniff. Must be pollen.
Yeah, it's just a little pollen in the air.
Yep, I love it. And then she playfully like walks away from him, smiling and laughing.
Right, because
which we don't normally see.
Earlier in the episode, it's established that he used Mrs. Hall's bath salts.
Exactly. Exactly. And then he just checks in on the horse, Candy,
to
check in on her
she's
pregnancy,
very pregnant,
and asks Helen to go back with him to the Dalbys.
Yeah.
So she has to finish up some things at the farm, and then they're on their way, and Helen's all nice and dressed in that cute little dress.
Right. She looks very nice.
She does. I kind of want that dress. I really need to go shopping.
The red one. Right?
No,
no, you're right.
The polka dot
one. Yes, the red one's later.
With the red belt.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need that. We need to shop for that.
That's the dress. Like,
somebody send us the
want.
link. We need it. But so then they're in the car, and this car conversation is key.
Right. This is very key.
Very important. So James asks about Helen's parents' story.
Right, like how old they were when they got married.
And he never thought about what happened to his parents.
Right, which, come on, James.
I know. And she's just like, well, you're not the romantic type. And James is like, what? She's like, you know what I mean.
He's like offended. I can be romantic.
Yeah. She's like, I just, you're not like,
the grand gestures.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And she likes that about him.
Yeah. And then he starts to spiral.
Yeah.
And he talks about Siegfried's comment, and he says...
He gabbles on.
Yeah, he keeps gabbling. And he says, she goes, what did you say to Siegfried's comment? And he goes, I laughed.
And she looks a little bit angry, actually.
Yeah, like,
she's
James,
like,
what kind of response is that?
Funny.
I know. She's like, oh, well, I guess you just laughed, so that means you don't want to marry me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So then there's a little... tiff. He talks about how he's just worried that she's going to say no.
Right.
Exactly. And then they go off into the field.
Right. She kind of freaks out.
Yeah. I mean, she's going back and forth on, where is this guy at? First he's laughing about the idea, but then he's worried that I'm going to say no. So
And
wow, does he actually really want to marry me? Do I want to marry him? Stop the car.
All of this is happening in the span of like 30 seconds.
I know. And it's all on her face.
Yeah, it is.
Wonderful acting. She's amazing. So she gets out of the car. They're in this beautiful field because the Dales are gorgeous and we love them so much.
There's no ugly part of the Dales.
There is not. I would like to see one, but I don't think we will.
Some crummy alley.
I know. Give us that. But no, it's beautiful. And then they're talking and essentially they get engaged.
Yeah. But one snag.
He
didn't ask her dad.
Exactly.
And somehow, for some reason, this is important to her. She's not a traditional lady. Like, nothing about her is traditional, but that is apparently very important to her, which props. That's great.
Exactly. And then to end that scene, she goes and smells him and goes, why do you smell that way? It is you. It's not the pollen in the air.
I think she knew it was him to begin with.
I believe so.
But now
as
she's
well.
just like, why do you smell so strongly? And yeah, he admits.
Exactly.
He ran out of bath salts.
Poor guy. But he smells good, so that's good.
Right. He smells like Mrs. Hall, but that's, preferable to stinking.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll talk more about James and Helen.
All right.
Support for all creatures, great and small, on Masterpiece is made possible locally by WITF members and by Pleasant View Communities, UPMC, Murray, and Argiers Maradi Neurosurgical Associates of Lancaster.
Welcome back. Are you ready to hear more about James and Helen?
I am.
Okay,
we're
I'm
getting to the
excited.
good stuff.
I know. So we're at the Alderson farm.
Yes.
Getting down to it. James is getting a pep talk from Helen.
Right.
She's like, don't gabble. Look him straight in the eye and ask him.
He's like, I don't gabble on. When do I gabble on? Maybe when I'm really nervous, I sometimes gabble on. Oh.
Just looks at him like, come on, man. You're doing it right now.
And I feel for James because I have a habit of filling silences as well.
Do you gabble?
I do gabble.
You gabble.
I know.
I will sit there and just be like, I guess it depends. But I don't know. You're a gabbler.
I'm a gabbler.
That's hilarious. I love that word too.
I might use it in regular speaking now.
Yeah.
Gabble is exactly what you do.
Yeah. So Mr. Alderson is running to the car, looking anxious, scared, worried. Something's wrong.
Right.
Not what James was hoping the situation to be when he goes to ask for his daughter's hand in marriage.
He did not want to walk into an extra stressful
Exactly. But here we are.
Situation.
So that we come to find out that Candy, which is Helen and Jenny's mom's horse.
Right.
She's in distress. She's laying on the ground and, moaning
the labor
and stuff.
is not going as planned.
Exactly. So a little more graphic details again with this. James takes off his jacket and has to go in
shoulder deep
again. And he finds that the uterus is twisted.
Yes.
I can't imagine the absolute pain.
That would be just be horrible.
No, like, oh my gosh, please, geez. So then he explains it to Jenny, which was a really good explanation, especially because she's into farm animals and vet.
They kind of gave her a vet book earlier in season 1, so like she may have a future in vet care.
Exactly.
Honestly. So
maybe we don't know.
So he's teaching her. It's cute.
Exactly. It was a really cute teaching moment. She runs up and calls Siegfried. Mm-hmm. And Tristan's reading a book.
Yes. Shoot. I wrote it down and now I can't remember. Biggles Goes to War. Mr. Biggles Goes to War, I think is the book.
Exactly. So he's reading that and Mrs. Hall is listening to the radio. We're leading up to, we're hearing about more of the war and what's going on. We're leading up to that.
She looks worried.
She looks very worried.
Yeah.
Exactly. We do cut to a scene where Mrs. Hall goes on a walk.
Right.
And brings Jess with Gerald Hammond. And they finally. Jeez. My note there was that Jess seems a little much like she wants to play with the other dog. And maybe she's not in scenes with other dogs.
Oh, maybe.
Because she seems
my God,
very
I'm
excited.
So excited.
Yeah. So I was like, I wonder if that's it. So we find out a lot about both their backgrounds in the war, around the war.
Yeah, we do.
Her husband was in the war and he came back with no scratches, but, he had PTSD.
Yes, they called it shell shock,
shock.
From World War II, but that would explain in season 1 why he's referred to as a brute.
Yeah.
Nobody knew how to treat PTSD at that point in time. I mean, even now it's hard to treat. So it kind of gave context as to why she didn't give up on him. Maybe why she has this thing for hopeless causes. Like she didn't want to give up because he was good.
Yeah.
And then he came back broken.
Yep. Because he was good to her.
Yeah, he was an excellent husband before the war. So that was a nice little side note into her.
Yeah. But then she's worried that her Edward is going to have to go to war and all this stuff with everything going on.
And experience that too.
And him have to go through the experience. She's very worried about that. So then we go back to the Aldersons.
Yes.
Siegfried and Tristan show up. And Tristan in all his glory. The cavalry's here.
The cavalry's like, what a goofball. But yep, they're there.
He brings light to everything.
Yes.
He really does. So with the twisting of the uterus, James says he's going to grab the hooves. And then they're going to flip the horse.
Right. While he's holding the hooves.
While he's holding the hooves to make the uterus untwist.
Right.
And then she gives birth.
Right. And if this is their last ditch effort because it's too late to do a C-section.
It is. So she gives birth to new life.
Thank
and they're going
to
name the little baby foal Joan after their mother.
Yeah. There were a lot of levels to this horse birth that were very stressful to me because Candy is their mom's horse. And so if they lose the mom and the baby, they will have lost everything their mother has basically left them.
Exactly.
Whew, that was a lot.
Oh yeah, and everything was riding on James. Like you can, if you lose this horse, you can't ask for marriage. Like you're never going to marry Helen.
The inappropriate time to ask, at least.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he saves the horse, saves the baby. Everybody's happy, and he looks and he takes Helen's advice, and he looks him right in the eye and says, "I want to marry your daughter."
Yep. And he goes, right.
Let's go up to the house.
Right.
Let's have a drink or two or three.
Maybe 4.
Or 4.
I don't know how many they
We're
had.
just going to keep throwing them
There were
back.
definitely 3.
At least 3. We do know about that, right?
Yeah.
So that was really nice. And then when they wake up in the morning, Jenny's taking care of everything.
Oh, yeah. She is in charge. She said, we don't need you here, Helen. Like, go live your life. Be happy.
Exactly. She's really showing Helen, like, we can do this.
Without you. We've got it from here.
Yeah. Like, you have permission to go off and do things that you want to do. We got it. It was really nice.
I love their developing relationship as sisters versus, like, mother-sister thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how dynamic.
Yeah.
It's a strange dynamic.
So now we have James's parents come into town. They arrive by bus and she's like, oh, wow, it's really pretty here, but you're going to come home.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen.
His mother is fully aware that he's coming home.
Exactly.
That's what she knows.
She has no idea that he's even dating anybody.
No.
4 or 5 months and he has never said anything.
Really did her dirty.
Yeah.
Like that is just not cool to do to your mother.
Exactly. Because she's like, you'll never get a wife if you're out all night.
Yeah, and that would have been a perfect moment to be like, well,
I was at my girlfriend's house. Sorry.
By the way.
Yeah, right? So he goes and picks up Helen, and then his parents are in like the living room waiting area, and Siegfried is like awkwardly standing over them.
He's just like standing and like lording all over all of them. Nobody is saying a word, like not even Tristan, which I mean, Tristan's good with people, but I guess he really doesn't know James's parents, and he probably knows that they know nothing. Yeah. So maybe he's just like, I can't say anything this one instance.
So then Siegfried goes, let's get a drink. And it looks like his dad's so excited to get up and get a drink.
Gosh, please,
and she's like, we don't drink.
And Tristan looks as disappointed as James's dad does.
I know. And then they both just sit down. Oh, right. Yeah. And Siegfried's like, yeah, we don't either. No, we don't.
Special occasions.
Exactly. We just don't. We don't. So he gets Helen and picks her up, and then he says, what's that on your shirt? And mind you, she's dressed all in red.
Yep, she's dressed all in red, and she had just been holding a chicken, so there's probably something on her shirt.
Probably. She goes, what's on your shirt? She turns around, and he slyly romanticizes her, gets down on one knee, and says, will you marry me? And it was great.
Yeah, so I cried at this moment because I realized that her dad was witnessing another memory happening on the farm. Remember when she pointed out all the memories from the roof? Oh, I lost it. I can't do father-daughter things. Like, I just lose my mind every time. Anyway.
Oh, thank you for sharing. But it's gorgeous. She finds out it's her mom's ring. So, like, she really has her dad's blessing.
Yeah.
You know, she's got her mom's ring. And
he knows that it's her decision to make. I thought that was really sweet when he asked permission. He's like, you don't need my permission. She'll do what she wants.
Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't matter what I say. She's going to do it anyway.
I just love Helen's dad so much.
And he gives her, like, a nod. It was really sweet.
Yeah.
So they go and...
They meet his parents.
They go back to Skeldale, and that's when his mom drops the bomb to Siegfried that, like, he's going to accept another job. He's really going to miss it here.
That he's going to miss him.
Oh,
like, Siegfried is going to miss James.
Exactly. And Siegfried's like, oh, what? So cat's out of the bag.
Right.
And so James walks in, and the first thing Mom says is, he's gonna miss you when you're gone.
Right.
And then James is like, oh no. Oh, darn it. And then she goes, who's this? And looks Helen up and down.
Yeah.
Well, this is Helen, and she's my fiance. Hi, you've never heard of her, and I've never talked about her. And I was just here 5 months ago, and I wasn't even dating anybody.
Right.
But here I am engaged.
That is just the rudest thing you could possibly do to a mother.
Yeah.
I mean, even his dad looks shocked.
Oh, his dad's
like real chill.
Uh-huh.
Like, his dad's real chill.
Because his dad, I think,
level-headed.
brought up to him, do you know is there anybody back home?
Well, he said, I thought you were building, he said, I thought you were building a life in Derby.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he does allude to, his dad seems more open to the fact that he might not come back to Glasgow.
Exactly.
From the start.
Exactly. And so Mrs. Hall says, can you come help me to Tristan?
Right.
And Tristan's face is 100% something I would do. He like shakes his head. No, like, I want to stay.
Subtly, no. His mouth is just pressed together in this like grin. Yeah.
He's like, this
amazing.
Is getting good. I don't want to miss out.
It to look at his face a second time. It's like, this is amazing.
That's great. So they go off into the dining area, which they can still hear everything.
Right.
Anyway, James sits down and, he stands up for himself. He tells his parents the truth, finally, after ignoring the conflict the entire time, right?
Right. Says that he's not moving home.
Yeah. And he's not.
He's staying here, but not just for Helen, but because he loves the work he does.
Mm-hmm. And then Helen sticks up for him,
yep.
as she always does.
She's so good at it.
She is so good. I love her. And she says, he's made an impact here. He saved the cows farm twice because earlier in the episode, he shows his parents what he does for work.
He takes them to the Dalbies.
Yeah,
he shows
I love
them
that.
what he does.
I love showing my parents where I work.
Yeah.
Like, I can't wait for them to come visit and see where I work and, like, come to our events and see my projects that I work on. I love showing
like,
it
look
off.
what I do.
I know, exactly. So I feel him in that. A kinship with James. I love that word. So he takes them out, and then he saves the farm by saying, they're just copper deficient. You just have to do this.
Right. And he's
simple
really
medication.
confident.
Oh, yeah.
And a little
that
bit
smug look on your face.
Yeah,
that
smug
Mrs. Dalby
look
says.
Tells me you know how to fix this.
I know. It was great. So he goes and tells the truth to his parents and opens up to them, and his mother has to accept it.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. So then the next day, his parents are leaving, and he's seeing them off on the bus. And I don't know if you noticed and clocked the lady in the back holding a goose. Mother goose.
No,
I don't know.
didn't
She just
see
has
that.
a goose on a bus.
She has so she's on the bus and she's holding a goose.
on a bus and she's holding a goose.
Okay, I did not see that.
Not sure why.
I was
kind of curious.
Too focused on his mother's reaction, which is just to immediately sob as it pulls away.
That was great. Yeah. And the hug. The hug
the
she doesn't give
hug.
Helen as Helen gives her a hug.
Yeah, she just kind of stands there with her arms down.
Yeah, it's very much like, you took my son away. I understand. I get it.
I don't like
want
it. But maybe you'll give me grandkids.
Hopefully. And then they're at the Drovers pub. And we see them all kind of chit-chatting.
Right.
They do a cheers for the engagement. Cheers to Chamberlain for signing the agreement.
They think that he's averted war, which is when you're in it, you're trusting it.
Exactly. And Tristan mentions that he's going back to college. And cheers to the newly engaged couple. And Tristan with the smart little remark that he always says, do you think you'll be able to go through it this time?
and she punches him.
And she punches him because...
Which is well deserved.
Yes, exactly. It's that like brotherly, sisterly love. It's really cute, the whole family dynamic they have going on.
Yeah, I mean, Helen feels like she fits right in too with the Scaledale house.
Exactly.
So that's, it's really nice to see all this come full circle. This is essentially the finale before the Christmas episode.
Exactly.
So they wrap it up with a nice little bow. And I think we're going to see World War II in the next season. Well, I know we are. So I'm a little bit worried it's going to get a little heavy, but
I agree with you.
We'll see how it goes.
But hopefully there's a wedding that's being planned.
Yeah, hopefully.
So that lightens things up. Everybody loves a wedding.
Yeah.
Wedding drinks all around. Like, I love weddings.
There will be some happiness. I'm sure that the whole season is not going to be super heavy sadness, but
I'm sure
I think we're going to be talking about World War II a lot, and it's still relatable content because, there's still wars happening. So
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to Postscript from WITF. We love watching along with you episode to episode.
And if you have moments you love or wonder about, share your afterthoughts with us at postscript@witf.org.
This podcast was produced by Amorós for WITF. I'm Beth Cappello.
And I'm Christina Zeiders. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
We'd like to thank Pleasant View Communities, UPMC, Murray, Argiers Maradi Neurosurgical Associates of Lancaster, and WITF members for supporting all creatures great and small on WITF. Thank you.